Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to Humor Me with Ed Crasnick. Ed is not here tonight emotionally, but he is physically. And that's the story of most of my relationships. We have a great show tonight. Paul Gilmartin, actor, host, human being. That's right, nothing wrong with your hearing. You heard me right. Human being is here tonight, and we're going to talk about mental illness, and then we're going to demonstrate it right after this.
I'm Richard Martin, and here is what I believe. I believe America is the greatest country on earth. I believe we need a return to family values. I believe every life is precious. I believe in a strong military to protect our borders and guard our fairways. I believe that we face a grave threat from religious extremism, but with God's help, we can crush them. I believe illegal immigrants make two things: tortillas and trouble. I believe it should be a hate crime to harm someone inside a gated community. I believe that gays serving in the military takes the dignity out of killing. I believe it should be illegal to ask questions during wartime or to talk about America without smiling. And finally, I believe it's time we banned death row pillows.
I'm Richard Martin, and I approve this message.
Paid for by citizens for Richard Martin.
In America, Nate.
All right, that's a hysterical video. It's one of my favorite characters. Paul Gilmartin is here tonight. We're going to talk to him in just a second, but I just want to say that we live in a country where we have, it's founded on three things: life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. It's the pursuit of happiness. It's not happiness. And what happens is the pursuit kills you. That's the problem with the pursuit. The pursuit negates the life and the liberty, you see, because you're trying to pursue happiness. We're chasing happiness. And it would be great if it weren't for the fact that the happiness is you're chasing something that's already inside you. So it's not even possible to get it. So I have some feelings about that. Shut it off. No. Anyway.
I couldn't agree more.
Anyway, now, Paul Gilmartin, you're a terrific actor. You're a great host.
Why do we got to start off with lies? That's what I want to know. If we're trying to get to elemental truths,
why are we doing lies?
Why do you kick it off with a bald-faced lie?
Okay, all right. Well, let's get
just to mock.
because I'm a Jew.
You mock because you love.
I mock because I love, and I love because I mock.
Yeah.
Which was a song, I think, by Carly Simon.
Yeah.
No, something else. You are the longest running show on television. You've been hosting a show since 1995. Yes. What I want to talk about, though, is not that you're hosting Dinner and a Movie since 1995.
It's being canceled, by the way.
I don't even want to hear it. I didn't hear it. I didn't hear it. We'll talk about that too. Right. But I got to find, you start doing this show, this podcast called the Mental Illness Happy Hour. Now you hear Mental Illness Happy Hour and you know, okay, I'm in. That's it. I am so in because it's got everything I love.
Sure.
Mental illness, happy, an hour. What prompted you to do the show? What have you learned since doing it?
What prompted me to do the show was my wife has been telling me for, I don't know, a couple of years, you should do a podcast, you should do a podcast. And my feeling was always that I don't want to do a podcast unless I feel like I'm adding something to the mix out there. And I don't want to do it unless I feel like I'm bringing something to it that is not being done already. And I was diagnosed with clinical depression in 1999, and I suddenly realized, oh, that's why I used to stare at the ceiling for hours on end as a child. That's why I, would feel dead inside until I drank or smoked weed, and then I felt amazing. And so I was going through this depression again, because as you know, you live with depression. It's ups and downs. And if you get medicated, the ups and downs aren't quite so bad, but there's still ups and downs within that. Well, I went off my medication, like a lot of people who live with depression do. You feel good enough for a certain amount of time, and you begin to think, this is me. You know, I don't need the pills. Right. And so you try going off them. And I went off them, and it was terrible. It took about 5 months for me to get to that point. Yeah. And it was like going off a cliff. I mean, I lost a ton of weight. I had no color in my face. It's like my body was shutting down. I didn't want to be alive. And I knew intellectually, oh, I'm going to go on my meds and I'm going to get back out of this. But the feeling when I was in it, I remembered when I had that feeling before I had ever gone to therapy or seen a psychiatrist. And I remember that feeling of hopelessness and feeling alone and thinking, I'm broken. This is just this is my fault that I feel this way. I'm not doing something right. I'm not thinking the right thoughts. I'm genetically broken, whatever it is, but thinking I'm doomed to feel this way the rest of my life. And I remember thinking to myself, that's the podcast you should do, is to let people know that it is not a death sentence and you don't have to feel that way the rest of your life. There are other people that feel that way. There's hope for it. There are ways to get out of it. You can have a productive life. And it might be interesting even to people who don't suffer from it. It might be entertaining to them to hear somebody, because I do get emails from people that are like, I don't have any type of mental illness or live with depression, but I think your show is fascinating.
Well, because people are, because as you were just talking, you know, there are things that, a full human being is a lot of different things.
Yeah.
And media usually doesn't allow for it.
No.
So you're a funny guy, be
Yeah.
funny.
Exactly.
You're an actor, be an actor.
Exactly.
But don't be a human being and an actor.
Right.
And when you create that kind of media, the world opens up.
Yeah.
People are interesting.
Yeah, and podcasts themselves are, I feel like we're, you know, what the golden age of radio was in the, what would it be, the 30s or the 40s? Sure. I feel like with podcasts now, this is really the dawn of a new era in entertainment, and we're taking the power back from the networks who have compartmentalized and decided what they think people do or don't want to hear, what language they do or don't want to hear, what subject matter they do or don't want to hear, and we're proving to them that you are out of touch. And it's fun for me because I'm sure as doing the show is for you. I heard one of the guys from Monty Python describe their first year on the air, and they said they felt like they were let loose in a field of flowers that had never been picked before. And they just got to do all this stuff kind of for the first time. Now, there are other podcasts that have touched on stuff that I'm touching on, like Mark Maron's podcast was certainly a big influence in me deciding to do this one, because I saw, wow, this guy's being really successful with talking about stuff that is really deep and kind of painful. And so I thought, what can I want to head in that direction, but where he turns right, I want to turn left, and just kind of keep going down that road of the mental illness and the pain and the childhood but do it in a way that is not morbid or self-pitying, because I think that's another dead end, is to treat it like that.
Well, and the other thing is, it's not, you know, none of this stuff is who a person is. It's a thing. It's a behavior. Yeah. It's not who you are.
Yeah, it's not your natural self.
It's not your natural self.
No.
And that's why it doesn't work.
Right. And until you medicate yourself, if you need medication, or seek therapy, if that's until you do the things that you need to do that you've been avoiding doing because they seem lame or like a hassle, until you do those things, you're never going to really find out what the natural you is. You know, the first time I went on psych meds, you know, I thought, oh, it's going to be like cheating. It's going to make me euphoric. They don't make you euphoric. They give you the chance to feel euphoric. You have to live the life then that provides the euphoria, but they just give you a chance to feel normal. Right. And
the ground
it's not cheating. It's like saying that a diabetic that takes insulin is cheating. Right. No, they're just, it's just bringing them up to normal.
And then in this country, you know, in this world, everyone carries issues inside of them and with them and lives with it on a day-to-day basis. Yeah. And I've always felt like whether it's, you know, like there could be clinical depression, there could be mild depression, there could be all kinds of grades of it. Yeah. But the thing is, people need tools. You need something that you can do. Yeah. And you need something that's simple, not something that's, and I've been in therapy, what's today? I mean, you know, I'd be on Pluto if they had frequent flyer miles. Right? I mean, I've done a lot of the different kinds of therapy. But the thing is, if you're a good talker, it doesn't move you. You can keep talking. You know, it's in here. It's not out there, you know? And so whatever works for you is great, but you know, this is a time where what's going on outside is falling apart. So it's obvious that we have to go in. Yeah. You know, it's obvious that we have to go inside, and that we cannot look. You can get more benefit from sitting in a chair and breathing than you can from going to a bad therapist for 15 years. Yeah, I agree. I agree. And the thing that I thought might be successful with the show is I think people have had an ass full of the kind of experts telling them what to do and talking down to them. There's a lot of people that probably could have benefited by watching Oprah, but could never bring themselves to do it because they just don't like that vibe. You know what I'm saying, that vibe of, it just feels kind of, makes them feel pathetic or like they're needy or weak or whatever. And so what I think one of the reasons why people are connecting to the podcast is, I'm not an expert, and I don't proclaim to be anything close to an expert. I say, look, I'm just a jackass who tells dick jokes that went through long periods of feeling suicidal and not wanting to live, and now I lead this life that is really peaceful and awesome. And whenever I can chime in what coping mechanisms have worked for me, I'm going to do that. Or when I'm having a tough time and my coping mechanisms aren't going to work, I'm going to chime that in. But mostly I'm going to talk to somebody and we're going to compare notes as if we were sitting in a waiting room outside a shrink's office and just having a good time and kind of trying to laugh about how ridiculous and beautiful and fucked up life can be. That's a great way to put it. That's a great way to frame it. A waiting room that doesn't suck. That's what I like to think of it as. You know, somebody will say, well, you know, my girlfriend is suicidal. You know, what should I do? I say, dude, I am the wrong person to talk to. Go see a mental health professional. This is beyond my scope. You know, I'll you know, let our show hold your hand and make you feel like you're not alone. Yeah. But well, I think you know, to me, I think the thing that's missing in the media, and I'm not talking about the marriage ref now when I say this, is something that actually offers people some help and is funny. Yeah. Yeah. It's not out there. It's not out there. It's not on TV. Right. Now, the reason why it's not on TV is because you'd have to be a human being to host the show, and they'd have to allow you to be human. Yeah. And they're way too afraid of the chances that you need to take to do that, and my show takes those chances. You know, in one of the episodes, I was interviewing a guy named Tyler Smith, who's an avowed Christian, and we were talking. He said he had a great relationship with his mom, and I made some horrible incest joke that just laid there, and then we laughed about the fact that there was this line that I crossed, and how awesome is it that I have a show where I get to cross that line, and then we can laugh about it. Well, that would have been edited out of a network television show. Sure, sure. Would have never made it. But I think that endears you to somebody listening to the show because they're tired of airbrushed entertainment. They want to see the warts. Yeah. And to me, I've always been more interested in the pain underneath the laughter than the laughter itself. Me too. I mean, I always wanted to know what was going on with the person and how they overcame. I've always been fascinated by how, you know, I've worked with so many people who are so funny, and then they leave the setting that they're funny in, and all this shit is going on in their life. Yeah. And they don't really portray it, but it's just going on. Yeah. And I thought that is really interesting.
There's a big chunk of gold you're not even looking at.
You're not looking at it, and you have something that's a full person. It's very interesting. It doesn't. There's room for more than one emotion.
Yeah.
Like you can have more than one, you know, and it's
Yeah.
like, and it's really great when
Yeah.
you do.
Yeah.
You know?
I think, unfortunately, network television and comedy club chains are not the place to do that. Or if they are, you got to be a hell of a performer to pull it off, to have that kind of ability to communicate those things and that vulnerability, and not either let the suits or the drunks in the comedy club knock you off the balance beam.
Well, we were talking about this just before. You were saying, I got all this stuff in the show, and I didn't know half this stuff about you personally.
Mm-hmm.
I'm saying, wow, wouldn't it be interesting to take all of that and do it and put it out as a live, you know, thing, a performance?
Mm-hmm.
And then your response was, but how am I going to do that in a club setting?
Yeah.
I mean, there's just no. So there's other ways to do it.
Yeah, I think it has to be in like a small theater. It has to be outside of the comedy club. It has to be people that are coming specifically to see you. And in a comedy club, you risk getting a party of 20 that is just there to see comedy and would be horribly disappointed by hearing me interview somebody about the time they were molested, or me doing a monologue about the time I was molested, or, you know, we don't always talk about molestation on the show, but sometimes we do.
There's a molestation chunk.
Yeah, there's a nice, you know.
There's an opening.
Yes.
Yeah. Well, but you, a gift that you have that's so great is you do such great characters, like the Richard Martin character. And so wherever you do this, that guy, there have to be people in there, you know, that are part of that equation, part of that.
I think you're giving me more credit than I deserve for doing characters, but I appreciate it.
But Richard Martin is a guy who could have other things going on with him.
Yeah, yeah.
That come out that he's very, he's very smiley about.
Right. Yeah. Well, I've already decided that he's definitely a closet gay, and and that drives almost everything that he does. And there's something fascinating to me about the closeted gay that is homophobic. I mean, obviously it's very obvious that they have to hate what they're afraid of becoming. Sure. But it's still fascinating. Yeah. Still fascinating to me.
Yeah. Well, the process of seeing somebody, struggle with and be the opposite of what they are is unbelievable. It's fascinating.
I can't imagine a bigger load to carry around than to be denouncing what you secretly know you are. I can't imagine.
Well, yeah, not in that way, in a way that is so much a part of you, your sexuality, so much a part of you and your lifestyle.
Yeah.
But being in show business, I got to tell you, I mean, I always, many times, rarely have felt like when I go in and I take a job, usually I ask myself a question, I go through a checklist, and it's how much of myself do I have to turn off to do this work?
Right.
And it usually is about 90%.
Yeah.
It really is.
Yeah.
And I'm not 15 anymore. So at some point you really have to just go and do what you do.
Yeah.
Because that's gonna, at the worst thing that can happen is you're being who you are.
Yeah.
And you're doing what you do well.
Yeah.
And that's it.
Yeah, and I'm much more willing to fail being myself than to fail trying to please.
Yeah, that's the problem. But that's the problem. Like growing up, I mean, I don't know, definitely growing up a people pleaser, definitely, always cared what others thought of me more than and certainly had that relationship with the audience for a long time.
Yeah.
Very important what you think of me. I don't care what I think of me.
Yes. Right. Even down to when you're writing and you're creating in your head, you're thinking how they're going to like this. I think until I started doing Richard Martin, I was always writing for the audience. And Richard Martin was the first time I started writing for myself, because I created that character to keep from going crazy. Because it was in Bush's first term, and I was so angry about the direction the country was headed that was my picket sign. I didn't think anything would ever come of it. I just thought this will help me blow some steam off in a way that makes me laugh.
Now, were you at the time in your personal life, were you struggling with the issues that you were talking about, or were you
No, I
pretty much...
actually had just gotten sober. I was about a year sober and was beginning to feel the confidence that comes with the building of self-esteem, and taking chances was one of those. I would have never had the balls to take the chance of doing a character. In fact, I remember calling Scott Aukerman, who was booking Comedy Death Ray, which was at M Bar at that time, and saying, I have this idea for a character I want to do. And this is before Stephen Colbert was doing his character, so this wasn't anything that people were necessarily familiar with. Right. And I said, I want to do this guy. I can picture what this guy looks like. It makes fun of the kind of hypocritical right-wing Christians. And I remember he said something like, oh, I said, and I think your show would be a good place to do it because you guys are, into people taking chances. And he goes, oh, we are? Oh, okay. And if I hadn't have been sober, that kind of dismissal, and he might have just been trying to be funny, yeah, but it would have hurt my feelings, and I would have said, oh, yeah, this is a stupid idea, and I would have never tried it.
Sure.
But being sober, I had enough confidence to say, no, I think it is. There's something there. I don't give a shit if people don't like it. I think it'll be funny.
What pulled you into, well, you know what, here, let's play a little audio clip from the Mental Illness Happy Hour. Let's play it from the podcast. We're going to listen, and then I'll come back and I want to talk to you about what the journey was, what turned you into somebody who you are today, but were struggling with, some years ago.
Okay.
All right, so let's take a let's listen. We're going to listen now, and you're going to see one of the greatest graphics that you're ever going to see for a show now while we listen to the Mental Illness Happy Hour.
Yeah, I remember the specific time when I first went to therapy was that I was living by...
How old were you?
I guess 19 or 20. Mm-hmm. And I was living by myself in my first apartment, my little studio apartment. And supposedly with my whole life ahead of me, and sitting on the ground, like in front of my bed, and just staring into space, and...
Oh my God, do I know that feeling?
Yeah, and really kind of getting scared. And then I remember, I don't know how long after, maybe a day or so, maybe a week, I don't know, being at my parents' house, and just kind of breaking down and telling them, like, this is not good, I'm not doing well. And that's when I got into therapy.
What was the feeling that you had? Was it of paralysis, difficulty in making decisions, feeling negative about the future? Describe that.
I sort of think that the negative about the future thing was sort of always there. And definitely I still feel paralysis. In a sense, I feel like I never lived up to my potential. And I realized that as a kid, I was always worried that I wasn't living up to my potential. And I still feel like that. But then, you know what? Maybe I am living up to my potential, and this is as far as it goes.
All right, so that's the Mental Illness Happy Hour. That's Paul Gilmartin's podcast, and that was Danielle Koenig,
right,
who is a terrific comedian, writer, married to a good friend, Jimmy Pardo. And her brother committed suicide.
Yeah. Andrew sadly took his life a little over a year ago, and she was very open coming on the podcast and talking about what it's like to go through that, and also being honest about how difficult it can be living with somebody, having a family member, somebody close to you that suffers from depression, because we can be a fucking pain in the ass to live with, because with alcoholism, drug addiction, or depression, one of the manifestations of it is that your reality is warped. And so you think your anxiety is because you're not doing something right, and you're not doing something right. You never think that it's your perception of things, and so you take it out on other people. And I was a pretty big asshole for a lot of years, and still can be if I'm not treating my depression or my alcoholism.
And so it's an everyday practice.
An everyday practice, yeah.
And what is it that you do? What is it that how do you take care of yourself?
I get help on a group level for my alcoholism and my drug addiction. I talk about what's going on with me. I listen to other people talk about what's going on with them.
You're married.
Married. I talk to my wife.
Yeah.
I try to communicate with her. I go to a psychiatrist. I take meds. I meditate.
You meditate.
I try to exercise. Yeah, I started doing that about, in fact, to tell you an interesting story. I kept hearing everybody talking about the importance of meditation. I also read Eckhart Tolle, who I think is amazing. The book, A New Earth, just changed my life. And he talks about the importance of meditating in the book. And so I was like, all right, I think the universe has sent me enough signals that I should at least try meditating. Because I had tried meditating on my own, but sitting down and saying, I'm going to meditate until I don't feel like meditating anymore is like asking the enemy how to defeat the enemy.
Sure, sure.
You're going to get the worst. You're going to sit down for a minute and you're going to go, all right, I'm done. Yeah. So I talked to this woman who taught meditation. She said, yeah, you know, you want to do structured meditation where you set, I'm going to meditate for 20 minutes,
sure,
whether I want to or not.
Sure.
And so she taught me how to meditate. And she said, one of the things you'll discover as you meditate every day is the world becomes easier to navigate, and things that you used to feel like you had to struggle to get will naturally kind of come your way. There isn't as much, it's more fluid, less friction. And I thought, that's a bunch of New Age bullshit. And 3 days later, I was getting ready to go back home to do a fundraiser for my high school hockey team, and I had to buy a pair of hockey pants, a pair of hockey gloves, and a helmet. The day before I was set to go buy those items, a friend of mine called me and said, hey, this guy I know who wanted to play hockey bought this equipment but was never got around to using it. Do you want it? It's a pair of pants, a pair of gloves, and a helmet. And they all fit me perfectly.
Yeah.
And I just went, you know, maybe there is something out there in the universe. Maybe there's not. But why don't I just try living as if there is and see how that goes. And I've been doing that for about 7 or 8 years, and life's a lot better.
Yeah.
If believing that there is some kind of force or energy out there that if I give to it, it gives back to me.
Yeah.
And
well, I agree. I started doing a little bit of meditation. I mean, it's so many different kinds of practices.
Yeah.
And not faithful enough
Yeah.
with any of them.
Yeah.
But the meditation, you know, first of all, unwinding stress, but not only from today, from years ago. It
Yeah.
keeps unwinding the stress that you have.
Yeah.
And I found that good. And then there was another thing that I, you know, Eckhart Tolle, Thich Nhat Hanh, these kind of people, great teachers, but something called the Sedona method, which sounds like the Andromeda strain. It's like the worst name. Some of these names are just bad.
Yeah.
You know?
that's where they take you up onto a cliff of red rocks and they
Yes.
give you an enema, right?
Yes.
The Sedona method.
Yes.
He's a little backed up.
But you know what?
Put him on a mule, let's give him the Sedona method.
And there's the red clay, and it mixes with whatever else happens, and who cares really? No, but and that's where the title Red Rocks West came from. No, but what it is it's a release. It's enema. It's a releasing technique.
Yeah.
And what it is there's something between expression and suppression. It's called releasing. And it literally is paradoxical to what the mind does, which is that it believes that you are more than your mind. And that if the mind is your master, it's going to be a very tough life for you. Well, instead of resisting everything, the basic foundation is to welcome it. And as soon, and I've been in therapy, I've had all these things, this is the first thing I ever did that actually changes your state in the moment.
Yeah.
Unbelievable.
And if you want to read a book that goes into that in detail in a way to learn to integrate that into your life in a functional, practical way, that book, A New Earth by Eckhart Tolle, is the one for me. It's a morning meditation book for me. I read just like 2 or 3 pages of it every morning.
Yeah.
And it really helps me stay in the present moment, because I think the mental illness is most comfortable when I'm talking about it as if it's an entity, but I really believe there is an energetic, almost entity quality to it. And I believe that energy drives you to want to think about the future or the past. And that's the worst place to live, because it's...
Well, first of all, it's not possible.
It's not possible.
You cannot live. What you can do is, and that's why so many people, I think, are surviving, you live a life of survival if you're thinking about the past or the present.
Yeah.
Or the future. The present is a place that I don't know much about, but I'm learning. I've heard about it.
Yeah.
I've heard about it. No, but yeah, but the other thing is, in this world, it might not be years ago or our ancestors. Happiness, it's a practice. These things are practices, and ignorance is a practice.
Yeah.
You practice ignoring things that are coming up all the time, and it becomes habitual.
Yeah.
You say, "Oh, I didn't even notice that," and you're walking around with this crap all the time. So these little practices, these tools, are so important, and I think the delivery is humor. And it's so to people, it's so paradoxical. The sound of it.
Right.
How can you make fun? How can you make? That is the delivery. When you open up, when you're funny, you open up, and you're free to laugh, and you're free to cry, and you're free to feel things.
And I think if you're to the point where you're laughing about something, there's a certain amount of surrender and acceptance of something you don't have any control over. And to me, happiness is inaccessible if I can't accept the things that I don't have any control over. I don't have to approve of them, but if I don't accept my powerlessness over them, I just can't have any fun, because then I'm pissed off that things are that way. But when I can just say, oh, okay, I'm never going to be this. I'm never going to probably get to do that. I can't go back and change this. I don't know, just this kind of peace comes over me, and then my mind just kind of goes to, well, then let's have fun. Let's go do this. What do we have control over? Let's focus on that.
Yeah, life becomes about controlling things that you don't want instead of going towards the things that you do want.
Yeah.
Well, I got to tell you, we're gonna, folks, we're gonna do the show. This is just the first half of the show. The second half of the show, we're gonna suppress everything we just talked about. We're gonna push it on down for you. Yeah, we're not gonna be honest, and we're not gonna be real, but we're gonna be funny as fucking hell. No, I don't. Amazing. Paul, I have, well, first of all, a tremendous respect for what you're doing. And love
back at you.
Love your talent too.
Nice.
Thank you, thank you.
I look forward to having you as a guest on the
You
podcast.
just tell me. I'll come. Yeah. I'll do it now. I'll follow you back.
Get the fuck out of here.
I'll follow. I don't need this shit.
This is bullshit.
I'll follow you back to your home.
I didn't like this studio when I came in.
The carpet is weird.
Yeah.
No. All right. So usually I have something that I do on this show, and it's called Fast Five, and it's 5 questions that have absolutely no relationship to each other.
I like it.
And you have
Let's do it!
You have 60 seconds to anscer all 5.
Let's do it.
But I haven't prepared anything, so I'm going to do it improvisation. Usually I write them down.
I don't know why I'm closing my eyes. I want to look spiritual.
But that's great. That's a great way to do it. And that's how I meditate. I
Yeah.
talk to other people while I'm closing my eyes. That's my version of it. Okay. So put 60 seconds on the clock. Let's see what I can come up with for Paul Gilmartin and the Fast 5. 60 seconds. First question out of the gate. Best food to have when you're watching To Kill a Mockingbird?
I would say Gino's deep dish pizza from Chicago, but from the original Gino's, not the bullshit satellite ones.
Yeah. All right, good. Let's see. Song that you're guilty about singing in the shower?
Hanson, Mbop.
Good and true. Okay, and something that your dog is thinking that it doesn't want to let you know that he's thinking that.
I just hang around for the food.
Yeah, okay. And most embarrassing moment on an audition?
Swearing and having like the flash dance table of judges be completely silent except for one woman with cat-eye glasses literally say, "Oh my."
That's great. And who, in your opinion, killed JFK?
JR.
The first guy who's gotten it right. Paul Gilmartin, unbelievable. That was great.
Thanks,
and
Eddie.
you have and we're going to do that. You know, you and I were going to do a thing. We're going to have name that illness is going to be a thing.
I like it.
We're going to do it, and I'm going to do it like $20,000 pyramid. I'm going to say all the symptoms, and then you say what it is.
Nice.
I don't want to leave the house. You're agoraphobic.
I like it.
All right.
I like it.
I'm going to go out on a clip. I want to show. This is a show that I had been doing, and I said it's called the Self-Help Comedy Hour. We did it. And what it is it's a panel of 3 comedic actors, a therapist, and a guest who's talking about a life issue.
I heard a little bit about this.
Yeah, you love this.
Yeah.
And you're going to come on.
Okay.
And what they do is they role play. They do therapeutic role play. And it is like an emotional who's line.
Uh-huh.
And it's unbelievable. And I'll show you a little clip. This is Moon Zappa and Taylor Negron, and they're doing this little tiny role thing. And tell them, I think your camera's there.
Okay.
Tell them where they can find the Mental Illness Happy Hour.
The website is mentalpod.com. You can also go to iTunes and just look up Mental Illness Happy Hour. That's the best way to do it.
It's the greatest show in the world, and you should listen and watch and support.
I don't think that was effusive enough, Ed. I'd like you to make it the universe, the greatest show in the universe.
It's the greatest show in the universe, and you're crazy if you don't listen. Now I'm going to punish you for not. All right, listen. Next week, we have. This is the first time we've done this on the show. We have a funny blogger. We have somebody from cyberspace. This woman, a very, very funny, talented young woman named Almy Rose will be here, and she's hysterical, very interesting, and just a tremendous blogger. So we'll have Almy Rose, and then we're going to have we have Dana Gould coming up. We have Jackie Cation coming up. We have
got great guests.
We have some good guests.
Yeah.
All I can say is thanks for being here, and keep coming back. It works if you work it. Paul Gilmartin, a pleasure.
Thank you, Ed.
Thanks for being. I so enjoyed talking to you.
You too, buddy.
And much success with everything that you're doing. And now take a look at the Self-Help Comedy Hour, and we'll see you next time. Good night.
And sad and hopeless, and I'm thinking about all the things in the world that are terrible, and I just want to be numb.
And I use you to be numb?
And I use you to be numb.
I would like to say something as hunger.
As hunger.
Okay.
As hunger. I think that if you investigated your metabolism a little bit better. Please, I'm talking. And maybe put a little more energy into breakfast. Your metabolism will not be requiring overeating as the day goes by. And if you eat more like a Japanese person, a little bit of fish and a little bit of soy in the morning, you won't be hungry all day.
We have just left psychodrama totally at this moment.
Welcome to Celebrity Psychodrama Seder. It's Hebrew sweeps. Have a party.
Anyway, make me go back.
I want to just say this. A psychodrama begins with a warm-up. The major part of it is the enactment, and the last part of it is something we call the sharing. And just as there's no patience in psychodrama, there are no analysts, there's no interpretations, there's no advice giving. So what you just did, while the advice may be good, it stops any chance that Moon has of going deeper into herself. You move her from her body and her feelings into her head, which is anti what we're trying to do. But aside from that, it was very funny. But
Are you going to arrest me?
I think that's it.
Ladies and gentlemen, Dr. Michael Solomon.